Eric Hammer here, registered physiotherapist. Today I'd like to talk to you about some functional exercises for the hip that I like to use kind of later in the rehab process. But before I begin, please hit that subscribe button below so you'll be notified about any new videos I put out on my channel here. So essentially, after we've been dealing with some acute hip pain, right, and the pain has more or less settled down, perhaps we've worked on isolating certain muscles that are weak, we're basically ready then to go into more functional specific rehab exercises. So what's really important in terms of the rehab process is you want to make sure that you're moving towards function. Right? So in a lot of cases, right, when you're dealing with pain, whether it's in the shoulder, whether it's in the hip, in the knee, we want to go through a very specific program in terms of isolating the different areas that are either weak or tight, and then moving towards very specific functional activities, because essentially that's where the day-to-day problems are going to stem from, right? So with the hip, for example, somebody might be having pain with, going up and down the stairs, or for maybe more active individuals, maybe they're having pain with directional changes. Maybe they're playing a sport that requires a plant and a push off, or again, a twisting type of action. So as the discomfort, as the pains, the acute pain starts to go, and we isolate and build up strength in very specific muscles that might be weak, well, near the end phase, right, of the program, we want to go towards very specific functional activities. And so one of the exercises that I find really beneficial when we're in that stage, right, where we're looking towards more increase in, let's say, specific functional or sport-specific activities, is something called the clock exercise. And so the way that this works is I'll have a patient imagine or even put down tape or something on the ground where there's a clock that's essentially around them. And based on this, right, we can work towards specific activities. So for example, right, I might, depending on the population, I might first start out with doing a clock exercise where we're just going to step towards each number in the clock. So that might look like 12, 1 o'clock, right, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, right? And we go around, so I'm going clockwise initially, and then I'm going to do the same thing, right, with the left side, right, going all the way around back to that 12 o'clock. So that might be a starting point. From there, hey, maybe I work towards a longer stride length, so perhaps a lunge type position. So again, I'm going to go 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, right, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then if I'm just doing one side, I'm going to cross over, right, 7, 8, I'm going to go out in front, 9, right, 10, 11, 12. So if you think about, right, different activities, hey, if I'm playing tennis, for example, I might require to do a lunge to reach out and do a forehand, let's say. Or again, if there's perhaps with basketball, well, I have to be able to cross over in this direction to go against my defender. So the point is that with these exercises, you want to make them functional, right? And also with these exercises, it's going to force me to use particularly my glute med muscle, which is a muscle that's responsible for pelvic stability and for hip abduction. So basically the movement out here, it's going to force me to use that particular muscle in very much a functional type of position. It's also going to force me to go into some flexion, right, in through the hip area, which is going to be really important if, for example, I've got hip arthritis and where I might be somewhat restricted, right, in my ability to flex the hip and also go into some internal rotation. So the great thing about this is after we've isolated, again, these different muscles and movements that are either weak or restricted, hey, now I can make it much more functional. And I really want to mimic, again, these different activities. So again, the lunge can be a great exercise to do in that respect. From there, I can work on some balancing specific exercises. So maybe I'm going to balance on the one side and I'm going to place my leg in these different directions, right? So I'm going to go 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I can circle around, go out in front. And this, again, is going to be a very challenging type of exercises. So again, those sports that require that sort of coordination and balancing. Maybe there's a sport like soccer, for example, where I've got to, if I'm doing a header, perhaps there's some jumping involved, right? So again, depending on my ability now to have some impact through my hip, well, now maybe I'm going to do some jumps. So what that might look like is 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So again, you can see how using this different sort of clock diagram can be helpful in terms of directional changes, in terms of adding in plyometrics or jumping, in terms of stride length, in terms of mobility, and making it as functional as possible. I might then go to a single leg, right? So now I'm incorporating some form of balancing with plyometrics, right? And I go through, same thing again, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And so on and so forth. So again, great exercise that I like to use kind of later on, let's call it in the rehab process for the hip, after the specific muscles that are weak and tight have been identified, after we go from non-weight bearing to weight bearing specific exercises. This is a later stage rehab when the acute pain has settled down and hey, I can be more functional, but it's a really important aspect in terms of getting back to those specific activities that have been limited, right, as a result of the acute pain previously. If you have any specific questions or concerns, feel free to leave a comment below and make sure to check with a physiotherapist to make sure that this exercise is appropriate for you. And thanks again for watching. Have a great day. Take care.